All right, I want to show you a basic end game that you have to know down the road to be a good player. It's how to defend when you're down. You have the king, he's got a king and a pawn. It's pretty simple. There's a couple of basic things you have to know. Number one, the proper defense is your king goes in front of the king or the pawn, whichever one is the most furthest forward. In this case, if we moved, we'd play king to c2 because when they're even, you just go in front of the other one. So what happens, stay in front of the one that's the most advanced. This is a trap position here. The drawing move is not obvious. So what do you think it would be? Pause the video if you need to think about it. Okay, I'm assuming you've paused and unpaused it. The correct response is stay in front of the one that's the most farthest advanced, which is the pawn, correct? Cha-ching. So what happens is this. You come to another rule. If the side with the pawn advances to the 7th row with check, it's a draw. Check, draw. Stalemate. Okay. So, basic stuff. We want to stay in front of the one that's the furthest advanced. So the trap is to move here to the C file. Stay in front of the furthest advanced of the two. There you go again. Now, black knows the rule about advancing with check, meaning it's a draw. So he tries trap 1, bam. Staying in front of the one that's the furthest advanced. Scenario repeats itself. He goes back here. Stay in front of the one that's the furthest advanced. Kaboom. Same story. Again, this will be a 3-time repetition. Draw. Okay. Stalemate yet again. So those are the two rules you really have to know, is to stay in front of the piece that's the furthest advanced, and then if you're calculating, you want to calculate to where to win this position. Here, if it's black's move, it's a draw. If it's white's move, white loses. Because black has assumed opposition. White moves, when the pawn reaches the 7th rank without check, it is a win. So this is the key rule of all the rules. Pawn to the 7th rank with a check is a draw. Without a check, it's an easy win. All right? It is not complicated, but this is a fundamental of endgames that you have to know if you want to be a good player, because you need to go into the endgame recognizing that you're going to, number one, cut off that lone extra pawn and get in a position where you're going to be able to be in front of the pawn or the king when it tries the queen. Because what happens here is, this is what I call the shepherd position. The king, the black king, this game is won for black. He's in the shepherd position because his king defends the pawn all the way to queening. So that's why I call this the shepherd position. So when the king can go to the shepherd position, it's over. So these are the most basic of the king and pawn endgame lessons. Now here's another one I need to do, just to throw it in here because it kind of is too trivial to go by itself. Doesn't matter where this black king is. White loses. because white can never capture the rear pawn, which would be the e5 pawn. If white ever captures the rear pawn, he queens. It's just that simple. There's nothing white can do. He can try diagonally, you're never going to get into the square of the pawn, okay? Pretty basic stuff. So, again, let's go back here. So whenever you have, we can go back here, it really doesn't matter. You'll see this if you watch good players play, especially if it gets into, we watch good players playing blitz chess. You'll get stuff like, whoops, sorry, that's not legal. Something like this. He jumps in there, and then he just starts moving his king. And when the guy moves back, or if he, moves, he could move back here. The inexperienced player goes, why didn't he move back? Why didn't he take the pawn? He can't take the pawn. This pawn queens, because he's not in the square of the pawn. And I mention it all the time. The square of the pawn is the square drawn by the pawn's square that he sits on is the corner of that square. And it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So white's king needs to be able to move into this square to stop this pawn. If he doesn't stop, if he doesn't get in that square on the move, crunch. He's one move short. So it doesn't matter how you set him up, but we had this there originally. So it doesn't matter where this black king is at. It's irrelevant. This is an iron fortress. Black's pawns cannot be captured. There's nothing he can do. Black will get his king to the shepherd square, either here, here, or here. There's nothing white can do about it, and he will cash. Really, he's going to go here, for example. White can do nothing. Da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. He goes here. Yeah, well, whatever. We don't have to defend. Oops, sorry, he goes here. You don't have to defend anything. There's nothing he could do. Shepherd position. As soon as black gets there, it's over, right? So this is the key thing. It's like I said, it's a trivial bit of information, but you have to know that these pawns can never be messed with by the white king, no matter what the scenario is. Black is clearly winning this. Let's make it even a little more ridiculous. This is extra absurd. 4 pawns versus 4 pawns. Game over. Black wins this with no question. There's nothing white can do. There's literally nothing he could do. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. You would never have that position. But anyway, there's nothing white can do here. He can never take this pawn because he just cashes. So it's basic stuff. Things that you have to know, like I said, to be a good player. These are very fundamental, easy to learn at any level. But if you don't know them, you're going to have gaps in your game, and it's going to hurt you in the end. So hopefully you like this video. It's important stuff. So please like it, comment on there, and subscribe so you get more of this good stuff in the future. All right, you guys know what to do. I'll talk to you later.